From the peak of Saddle Butte to the depth of the LaPorte Slough, this is the Trent Klarenbach podcast, brought to you by the Klarenbach Grain Report and the Klarenbach Special Crops Report. Today is going to be a fun time. My guest is from the south of the 49th parallel down in North Dakota, the Red River Valley. His name is Adam Kuznia. He's an agronomist. He's a prolific writer on Substack. He's got a great newsletter. We came across each other a few years ago on Substack when I was publishing on there, and Adam had his Farming Full-Time newsletter, which his writing skill just blew me away. And today we'll talk about that a little bit and what he's doing today. Adam, welcome to the show.
For having me. Good to have a face-to-face after, what's it been, 2 years that we've known each other?
I think so.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, between your shorts on YouTube and I guess some of my stuff I do, we had this kind of long distance relationship. So yeah, I just remember, I don't know how I came across your newsletter, but man, I was quite impressed with your writing ability, and you have this way of turning the mundane into something interesting, and whether it's your newsletter or your shorts on YouTube, and how can people find you so they can experience this like I do?
Probably the best place to find me would be truegritag.com. That's kind of the hub where you can either go find me on Substack. I've got a newsletter on Beehive where I write about the more technical side of farming. Obviously YouTube, True Grit Ag, True Grit Agronomy. Right, True Grit Agronomy is new. I'm not used to saying it yet, but a lot of places to find me. But I would say the website, truegritag.com.
We'll put a link to that in our notes here too. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, your shorts are always entertaining. I try to watch them when I can, and I think they're gold actually. So yeah.
I love hearing that. Thank you very much, and thank you for the writing compliment too. I enjoy that.
I wish I could write, and you have that ability to do so, and it's you're a wordsmith, I would say. So
right on. I love that. Yeah, I don't know where it comes from, but my high school English teacher always told me, Mr. Kuznia, you should be a writer. And I always sloughed it off or shrugged it off, but it was always kind of in the back of my mind. I always wanted to do it, and I didn't actually start until 2023, so a little over 3 years ago, like actually really writing and perfecting a draft and publishing it. So, and I found it to be this huge relief valve. You know, I'm one of those guys that thinks a lot, so I carry around a lot of stuff, and just getting it out onto a page, even if I don't edit or do anything with it, it's still very, very therapeutic, if you will.
yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people. I haven't spent enough time writing. I had visions of ideas that I should be a writer until I put pen to paper and or keyboard to screen, and it's more challenging than. But I guess you have to work at it. Probably the first few drafts probably aren't that strong, and after that they improve.
Oh yeah, the first ones tend to be garbage, especially. I think the secret to it is not filtering yourself. Just write and don't worry about what it looks like. Just get it out on paper, even if it's complete nonsense. And then that's where it gets fun for me, because it becomes like a puzzle. Try and prove a paragraph or build upon a paragraph. You start moving stuff around, and sometimes the end belongs at the beginning. Sometimes the end or the beginning belongs at the end. You never know what a piece is going to be in until you're actually done with it. You know, you can have something in your mind. Pardon me. You can have something in your mind, a direction where you think it's going to go, and it can just take you in the complete opposite direction, like stuff you would never expect. It's pretty incredible.
Well, you're a busy guy. When do you find time to write between your agronomy practice? I know you've spent quite a bit of time in the fall, or have in the past, hauling beets, right?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on the farm. I mean, lately it's the production has kind of suffered. I've been having to stretch it out once every 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, because I'm so busy with all these new ventures that I've got going on. But I don't know. I always have a notebook with me. I always have my phone with me. If I have a thought, I'll either do a voice recording. I'll stop and jot something down. I'm not the best at this, but I always try to be present and just pay attention to the world. And a lot of times the world gives you material, you just overhear somebody says something to somebody else. And I don't know, I just pick up on it, write it down, and then it finds its way into a story. I don't know how to explain it, but I don't know. It's a pretty interesting thing to do. And I never saw myself doing it. That's what's so wild about it. And I will add, the connections that you get through something like this I think about it every day, just the network of people that I've met, all because I wrote on Substack. Like that got me attention from Sound Agriculture, which was the first real product I worked with, the first one I tested. Their rep actually reached out to me for like 3 months and completely ignored him, which I'm a salesman. I hate when people do that to me, but I'm just as guilty. And then he subscribed to my newsletter, and I'm like, well, I have to respond to this guy now. And I'm glad I did, because through him, I've met all these other people in the industry from all corners of the country. We connected through the writing. None of that ever would have happened if I hadn't put myself out there.
It's a great testament to use your term, your words, to put yourself out there. It probably wasn't easy the first few publications.
Still not easy. Every time I hit publish, I get nervous. Like, oh, should I say this? Should I? Well, yeah, even on YouTube, like, should I really put this out there? Some of the stuff is pretty silly, completely ridiculous, but I don't know. It's kind of like building scar tissue, you just take it a little bit each time, and it gets a little easier each time.
So, like, I believe that people like the ridiculous and the foolishness, right? So, but when you talk about your fears, and I've experienced them too, what would some of those fears be about putting something out there, expressing yourself, writing, and the fear of it not being accepted, a fear of rejection, negative comments?
Well, it's that typical fear, what are people going to say about it? That's the first one that comes to mind, because it's often hard to put that aside. What are the people I know going to say about this? Because I work close to my hometown, people I've known my whole life, and it's kind of weird how it's changed those relationships. It's connected to me with so many people on the outside, outside of my area, and back home, it almost disconnects you, because I don't know if people look at you a different way, and maybe it's just me that thinks that too. It might all be in my head. I don't know, but it feels like, I don't know how to even describe it, but yeah, it's just hard to, yeah, the biggest thing, what are people going to think? And that's the hardest thing I've had to get over. Making mistakes, I'm not afraid to make mistakes. I guess I've done that my whole life, and that's how I've learned most of the lessons I've learned, the most valuable ones anyways, from screwing up. So that part doesn't really scare me, but I don't know, it's a pretty deep question. Now you start to think, well, I've got a business, and how does it reflect on that? Especially when you do put the silly stuff out there, you wonder, are people going to reject me from that? Are you going to have this reputation as a complete clown? I guess that's what's in my mind a lot of times.
I struggle with that also, and I still take myself too seriously at times. I certainly did when I first started. You're afraid of being too goofy or not being taken seriously, but I've had some very clean-cut professional people at the peak of their industry outside of agriculture tell me how much they enjoy the goofiness and the ridiculousness. So, and these people, yeah, I don't think they've been able to do that or do that comfortably yet. So, it's kind of interesting. It is received, but we don't think it's going to be.
I think it's because it's real. You're showing people who you really are, and it feels like, well, we all wear masks, depending on who you're around. Everybody wears a mask. I'm probably a little bit different around certain people than I am around other people. I think that's pretty common. But when you can try and strip that off and just be yourself, it just comes through as, hey, this guy's not just trying to sell me something. He's being himself. And I think that carries a lot of weight.
I think so. I think it does. I think people recognize the real. And so back to the local community, and I'm leading the going in a direction here. You mentioned how you can get received, or you feel you've made greater connections outside of from afar, I guess, outside of your traditional circle, maybe your hometown or home area. Uh, would you say that you've experienced maybe greater reception or acknowledgement from people outside your circle, your hometown?
Percent. Yeah. I think the people in your hometown are the last ones to finally see, because I think they get an image of you, who you were in grade 10, like, cause I was a shithead, I did a lot of dumb stuff. We drank and drove. We were from a small town of 700 people. It's just what we did, and people might say, oh, that's child abuse, or, but it's the way it was around here. It's not so much anymore, but yeah, I goofed off a lot. And like I said, I learned a lot of hard lessons, but at the same time, those people who have known you your whole life, they get a image of you in their mind. And it's, in a lot of cases, you never reshape that, or it takes a long time if you have any hope of doing it at all. So I don't know. I have to tell myself that when I put things out there, like, this is me, here you go, take it or leave it.
Yeah, well, I guess from my experience too, and it's the expert's always in the next town over, is the
Always.
term I
Yeah.
use. And, and, people, I would say I've been embraced more widely from people who I didn't grow up with or know me because, yeah, I was a shithead. And I'm sure there's people think I'm an asshole, and they're right. I have been in times of my life, but
Same.
but it's tough to overcome that, right? So yeah, it's
It is.
interesting. I was kind of curious whether you had the similar experience, but I think it might be very common. The
I think
next
it
next
is. I mean, yeah, I think it is. I mean, I got University of Minnesota Crookston is 50 miles south of my hometown. One of the one of the PhDs there, she's been working there 34 years. She's helping me write grant letters to do nitrogen reduction research and product research on soybeans. And like, she does this out of the goodness of her heart. And, that's 50 miles away. Uh, like I said, people all over the country connections. Like, it just blows my mind how it is. It's the old profit in your hometown thing, probably a story as old as time. It's a hard thing to stomach, and it still bothers me sometimes, but I mean, you gotta keep going. You can't let that stop you.
Have you read Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act?
Yeah, a couple of times. I like Rick Rubin.
Good for
I
you.
wish I
I've
could
read it.
be I wish I could be as chill as that guy. Man. Oh, oh, I just had a thought and I just lost it. Never mind.
Well, where I was going with this is I read the book once, and it should be read more times, like you
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
So the one point that I really resonated with me from the first reading of it was the audience comes last. So if we want to be on social media, we want to put ourselves out there in a newsletter or a video, I think we have to do it for ourselves, which you alluded to early on. And don't worry about the audience.
Yeah, I found that too. If you start writing for the audience, or if you write something that you think other people want, it nosedives. You just have to, at least in my experience, you just have to write what you need to write, or make the video you need to make. Because as soon as you start to guess what other people want, it takes that authenticity out of it. I think it kind of it muddies it. I don't know how to really describe it, but yeah, you have to do it for yourself.
So, yeah. So you talked about, just briefly touched on reduced nutrition or fertilizing rates. Is that what you term you
Yeah,
on your?
reducing fertility. Yeah.
And yeah, so I read your one newsletter about that. You addressed, I forget the title of that particular one, but I wrote about it in January and put a link to it because it was really resonated with me with what Stuart Lawrence said on my podcast about reduced fertility and coming up with, well, you guys were both saying the same thing. You were seeing yields being maintained with less fertility.
I've seen it 2 years in a row on the farm that I manage. And I know a lot of people around the country who have been doing the same a lot longer than I have. I just met a guy in southern Minnesota 2 weeks ago who hasn't put potassium or phosphorus on his fields for 8 years. Started working with biology, and he found a few products that worked for him, and I mean, he hasn't put much fertilizer out at all. Very efficient, and so I know it's possible. I mean, I know soil is different everywhere you go, but in the end, it's all biology and chemistry. And we've just been, I don't want to say we've been sold this bill of goods, but we've been trained so long that more equals more nitrogen equals more bushels, more. But eventually that starts to work against you, because in most of the fertilizer we put down, there's a lot of salt in it. I mean, it starts to harm your soil, starts to kill that microbial activity. And eventually you need more and more and more just to produce the same. It's no different than I don't know why I always use the drug addict or alcoholic analogy, but it just needs more over time. It's almost like the ground built up a tolerance to it, or the plants to it. I don't know how to describe that right, but as soon as you start to pull back and you let the soil do some of that work, it's pretty eye-opening that we can get by on quite a bit less. And I always caution guys, don't do it too fast. Don't pull it away too fast, because back to the drinking analogy, you take alcohol away from somebody who's drank alcohol for 30 years, they're going to have problems. I don't think it's any different with the soil. You have to kind of ease out of it, back out of it. But it's been working for us. It works for a lot of people, but at the same time, I've never struggled so much to get people to adopt something different, because it's one of those farming things. This is the way we've always done it, and we're not going to change it, even when the economics strongly dictate that you should. It's just, change is hard. Change is scary. I mean, another tale as old as time. Humans are scared of change.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, you just brought back some memories for me. Is coming out of university and adopting and seeing the benefits or potential benefits of minimum disturbance up here in Saskatchewan, zero till. And it really resonated with me. And I thought it would take 3 to 5 years for those to start seeing some benefit from that. I think that was the case. I remember, you talk about soil biology. So our land was typically 50-50, summer fallow cereals. And I rented some land from a farmer one time. And Adam, I don't, people don't believe me when I say this, but I was in my 4-wheel drive tractor, my Versatile 800 Versatile, and this field felt different from the cab of that tractor. And I drove across my half and it just felt spongy. And the same farmer I rent the land from, he had land across the road, and that land didn't feel the same. Well, it turns out that spongy land had been zero tilled for 21 years at that point. And he was an early adopter, innovator. And the land that wasn't as mellow, I would use that term, hadn't been. So you could see how over time you can improve the soil. But we're just used to cheap fixes. We want to go get a prescription from the doctor, and the same idea, I guess, is with fertility often too. So
Fertility, fungicides. I mean, like I said, we're always reactive, and we're always looking for a product to fix basically what we've done. I'm not one of those guys saying you're harming the soil or anything, but But yeah, and you're right. I've seen, we don't have many no-till guys in my area because we typically have snow until, well, this year it looks like it's going to be well into April. Most years end of March, and well, shorter days. Our ground takes a long time to dry out, especially if you have a lot of residue. So most guys till up here a lot, but there are a couple of no-till guys, and I've noticed the exact same thing in their ground. It's spongy. It just feels different. And you can drive in it when it's a little wetter, and it doesn't leave a rut. Actually, I got a good friend that no-tills, and he put his sprayer tractor or his sprayer wheels, one on his field and one on the neighbor's field, and he was making ruts, I don't know, 5-6 inches deep on the neighbor's field, and his just floated up no problem. So there is definitely a difference that happens from it, but that's a hard one to adopt. And you say maybe 3 to 5 years to see those improvements. For us, it might be 5 to 10, just because I don't know, heavier ground, maybe more moisture. It's tough to get in there for us. So there's a lot of risk to go that way. But the guys who have done it and stuck with it are mostly successful. But it is such a big change or transition that not a lot of people do it. We're out in your area, you're limited by moisture much more than we are. So it's kind of a necessity for you guys, isn't it?
Well, again, when I started farming, it was new. I think I was one of the only guys who wasn't seeding who seeded everything, or or had 100% no till at that time. Most farmers were conventional, and it was there was a lot of debate about that, and there was
Yeah.
a lot of resistance to change, lots, but they've all adopted it, and to the idea that, and this might happen with resistant weeds and whatnot, but the idea of the drag a cultivator across the field these days is mostly unheard of. So
I bet, yeah.
yeah.
And I bet those people that were slow to adopt in the end, they were probably like, I knew it all along. I used to have people that 10, 15 years ago, they would fight me on drain tile. That is a waste of money, a waste of money. And now who are the ones that have most of their land drain tiled? Those same people that hated it back then. And then in the end, they'll tell you, I knew it the whole time. There's nothing. It's such a farmer thing. Oh, man, it just cracks me up.
Well, that saying, the first one through the door gets shot,
Yeah.
resonates with me.
Yeah. I've been a bullet sponge being the first one through the door for a lot of things. It's not always fun, but I don't know. It keeps it interesting. I like to try stuff. I've always liked to try stuff. And I worked for a farmer for 15 years who did nothing but rotate wheat, soybeans every single year and never did anything different. And it just, I don't know, it drove me nuts. I mean, the whole point of us being out here is to get better. So why not experiment with some things? But everybody's got their own way of doing things. And yeah, it doesn't pay to fight it. I can tell you that much. You kind of have to just roll with it.
Yeah, you need a curious mind and high risk tolerance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have both of those.
So tell me about that. Okay, so where exactly, let the audience know where you're farming at, and what you're doing, where you grew up, and what that looked like.
We're in northern North Dakota, Minnesota. I grew up in Stephen, Minnesota, northwest corner of the state, basically 45 miles from the border, straight south of Winnipeg.
Okay.
Yeah, lived in Stephen most of my life. Grew up farming. First word was on my first birthday. It was tractor. Tractee, actually. So I've been obsessed my whole life. My dad farmed, and I tagged along everywhere he went. Brought my little Bert and Ernie dolls from Sesame Street that I carried around everywhere. Used to embarrass them, bringing them into the John Deere implement dealer. Do you have to bring those inside? But yeah, I just always wanted to be around it. You couldn't pry me out of there. I remember one night my grandpa had to drag me out of the combine kicking and screaming. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and I was maybe 6 years old. I didn't want to go home. And the way he got me out of there, he drove a Ford Ranger with a stick shift. He goes, all right, if you come with, I'll let you shift the pickup. So I'm 6 years old, shifting gears, man. I always have to be driving something, just moving. I don't know what it is, but it just, and that's never left me after 41 years. I still love it. I've done a lot of different things since then. I mean, I went to school for finance. I just about took that route before I wound up back in farming. I've worked at car dealerships. I've worked on cars, sold service for cars. I've sold cars. I've done Uber, DoorDash. I've done dozens and dozens of things, and there's nothing like farming. There's nothing like being outside, being in the dirt. It's, call me a hippie, but it makes you feel connected, you know?
Well, it's what as real as it gets, in touch
Yeah.
with nature, right? You
Yeah.
get your hands, a moist soil, or where I grew up was a dry soil, but it was still soil, right? And seeing
Sure. Yeah.
something grow, planting something,
Mm-hmm.
seeing it grow to maturity, there's a lot of fulfillment in that, I would say. So
Yeah. And it gives you you grow a crop and take it to harvest. It gives you a sense of accomplishment. Yeah. But there's also nothing more humbling than farming. You think you got something figured out and then it can slap you in the face, except maybe call options. Those might be a little more humbling depending on how you're using them. But yeah, farming is right up there.
well, the market is definitely determined to make the most people feel the most pain possible. But
I have
yeah,
felt a lot of that pain. Yeah, swinging for the home run.
yeah,
We talked about risk tolerance earlier, and I have a abnormally high one, so I have to really keep that in check.
yeah, yeah. I can appreciate that too. So population of Stephen? How big is North Dakota? How big is that?
Stephen was 707 when I was growing up, and I think it's down in the 500s now. Not a lot of people come back there. The average age is getting up there. It's like any typical Midwestern town. I mean, all I've really known my whole life from a community standpoint is decline, just a slow erosion, loss of people. I mean, there's hardly any opportunities for people there in towns like mine. There's not much industry. It's basically a farming community. And as the farms have gotten bigger, the need for people has dwindled. So they've left. And it's changed a lot in that time. I mean, yeah, it's changed so much. You used to be able to drive around when I was a kid, and Main Street would be full, 30, 40 cars driving around. Now you go back there, it's a ghost town. I don't know, it makes me sad, really. And you see it everywhere, all over. I drove to Texas over Christmas break and I saw the same thing, but farther along, towns that are almost completely abandoned. I don't know, it's a weird place to be, a weird time to be alive, just to see that decline, decline, decline. And then all the things that it leads to, you see a lot of addiction, mental health stuff. I mean, it's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise a family, but at the same time, it's a really challenging place to do that. If that makes any sense at all.
Well, I think so. I grew up in a town of it was 400 people, and I think maybe it's 500 now. It's actually maybe slight rise in population, but small community, like you say. There's not a whole lot going on. Great community spirit keeping things going, but I mean, as far as services, there's just less and less all the time, and with that comes opportunity, and eventually, luck. People move away, but yeah, it's really interesting though for me, and I've talked about this a little bit. Growing up, there was some prominent family names in the area, so it's basically you didn't really feel you felt surrounded by these names, right? There'd be larger families, bigger operations, and then 30, 40 years later, some of those names have disappeared from the area, right? Like,
Yeah. I mean, that, in a way, that was us. My grandpa was he was in the top 10 largest farms in Minnesota in the late 70s. Got really big. Oh, if my dad watches this, he's going to get upset, but it was, I think, 6,800 acres at the peak. maybe close to 7, which was a lot in
Wow.
1978 to 1980. And they were running around spread out probably 25 to 30 miles with the equipment they used to have. That was a lot of work, man. Those guys, a lot of people in my hometown still say there's nobody that worked harder than those two Kuznia boys, my dad and my uncle David. And yeah, they were huge. But then the 80s came along, and grandpa was overextended. Interest rates on all that land that he had bought, and it was marginal land. He was probably farming where he shouldn't have been farming, to be honest. He was breaking up CRP land that had been reserve land for forever, and there's a reason for that. But yeah, it was a perfect storm. And by 1986, they had an auction, and that was it. And then my dad he farmed throughout the rest of the 80s. I think in 90, he quit, and he tried again in 95, 96. And those were some of the wettest years I have ever seen. We got stuck doing everything. We got stuck tilling the field in the spring, seeding, harrowing it, spraying, combining, plowing. We were stuck in every single thing we did that year. It was just so wet. And in the end, we had, I want to say, 7 bushel barley, 10 bushel durum. Those were some tough years. So that didn't pan out, and he ended up driving a semi over the road, and he still does that today. But I think he still has that. He'll always be a farmer too, and I think he really misses that at times because it really gets in your blood,
When did your dad quit farming full time?
1996, I think, was the last year. 95 or 96.
Yeah, there's a real pattern there, and if you got through the 80s, you had to get through the 90s, and then things kind of turned around. Then you had a few years in the 2000s that if it didn't, that whole term, if it didn't scare you out, it'll wear you out. And people got
Yeah.
scared out and wore out after the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s. So.
A
But
lot different back then.
it was, yeah. But your father, or your grandfather, the narrative was produce more grain. There's high grain prices. And, I'm sure that poor land penciled out some of those years, right?
Sure it did, yeah. When he first took it, yeah, I bet it did. It was a get big or get out era. That's what the U.S. government was pushing at the time, and he followed that to the letter. But yeah, pushed it a little too far, I guess. Pushed the envelope a little much. But
Yeah, well, it wasn't, it was the thing to do until it wasn't. And like there's a whole host of stories up in Canada similar, right? So you just kind of wonder if it'd be a very similar narrative to today without the high interest rates today.
yeah, there are a lot of similarities, especially well, you talk about land prices a lot. I think that's the linchpin holding this all together. That's most of the equity on a balance sheet. And if that goes, oof, it's already a scary time in agriculture. And if we continue this downtrend, or whatever you want to call it, this trough, some people say, I don't know, it doesn't feel like a trough. It feels like a complete shift, like a paradigm shift in the industry, like how we do things. I think is going to rapidly change in the next few years. I mean, I think it already is. The market's telling us corn and soybeans on a large scale aren't working, and I don't know if I see that coming back. I mean, I could be wrong. They could do an E15 ethanol mandate tomorrow and push corn up for another 5 years, and maybe we go back into another little bubble cycle. I don't know, but which leads me to why I worry so much about this fertility reduction stuff, because that's the one area in your budget that you have room to move. Your seed costs are fixed, your land costs are fixed, everything is fixed except that fertility part. And if you don't move that and figure out how to get more efficient, you're going to be the next guy gone. I feel like, I mean, again, this could all change tomorrow, but I don't know. I hate to say this time is different, but it feels like this time is different.
Yeah. So how does a person, how do you help a guy walk through that reduced fertilizer? Because from the surface, you need to fertilize to get more grain.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been told, and that's worked, really.
And it
So
does.
how do
I
you
guess,
how do you make that transition? And that'd be what you would do with your agronomy service, I guess, right?
yeah, I'll, I like to start with a soil test, take a soil test, and just start from there. I mean, all the universities have published guidelines of what a crop needs to eat through a season. Um, and yeah, I'll go through those tables. I'll see what the university is recommending, and that's kind of my baseline. And the whole reason I started looking into it, and not to plug a product, but it was working with Sound Agriculture because they guarantee that you can reduce fertility with their products, and if it doesn't work, they pay you back. And they even have a program on corn where if you do 500 acres, if you do lose yield while reducing fertility, they'll insure it up to $100 an acre. So it seemed like to me it was a no-brainer to try it. And the first year I tried it, I started small. I cut just 25 units of nitrogen, 25 of phosphorus, and I didn't see any difference. But we did have a lot of rainfall that year, so there was a lot of mineralization in the soil. I mean, there's a lot in the soil that I would say we don't even know about. We don't even know how to measure. And it's hard to measure what's going to mineralize every season because every season is different. And it depends on environment so much. It depends on rainfall. The warmer it is, the more mineralization you'll get. So I was even skeptical after that first year, but I figured we got to try it again because crop prices kept going down at that time. So I cut even further. I went to 35 pounds of each. Still, I saw a yield bump in a lot of cases. And then I'm taking soil tests and looking at the soil health scores, the microbial activity, the microbial respiration, the organic carbon, which is the food source for plants. I'm seeing all these things growing on these fields where we're using less. I mean, my brain starts to make a connection that there's something here. It's just not only how do you measure it, how do you track your progress, but how do you get other people to see that it's possible when the common mindset is that, like I said earlier, more equals more, when I'm starting to see that it doesn't.
So would it be some sort of function of a number of factors? I would think maybe salt content ties up some minerals or nutrients, maybe the ratios between the when I farmed as NPK, right? There's some ratio between nitrogen and phosphorus that we tried to maintain some relevance to. Yeah, maybe that's how you get to less is more. Maybe more throws those ratios out. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
and
just
our soils are such high pH. We don't in my county, in Marshall County, in the northwest corner of Minnesota, we have 97% of the soil is 7.9 pH or above. And when your soil pH is that high, you spread phosphorus, it pretty much immediately binds to calcium and it's tied up. Plant can't access it. Pardon me. So a lot of guys will fall apply their phosphorus in September, October, November. By the time spring comes around, and I've heard a lot of numbers on this, it could be anywhere from 60 to 90% tied up, meaning 60 to 90% of the money you spent on that fertility is worthless. It's stuck there in the soil. And that won't show up in a traditional NPK soil test because it's tied up. So my focus is on releasing that because we've been spreading for years and we haven't been using it. So how do we break those ties? And that's where a lot of these products that I use come in and help unbind those minerals, make them plant available again.
so you could potentially see an increase in fertility just by unbinding these minerals, I
Yeah.
guess.
An increase in plant available fertility, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with all the terms,
That's,
but
yeah, I got to remember that not everybody is obsessed with this like me and reading about it all day, every day.
well, I mean, a lot of people might not think it's sexy. but it's important, right? So
It is, yeah. And I should say, I'm not technically an agronomist. I didn't even go to school for this. I'm just a self-taught geek. I just read about it all the time. I am going to be taking the CCA test this summer just so I can get some credentials behind my name. I don't know if it even pays or not, but everybody's got to have some extra letters behind their name at some point, right?
yeah, some people use it as a measuring stick for sure. Yeah,
Some do, yeah.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, there's a lot of areas where I am weak and that I do need to learn. So that's the biggest reason I'm doing that because I'm kind of like you. I'm always looking to learn anything anywhere I can, and it doesn't have to be about farming or agronomy at all. I don't know, just sound kind of cliche, but I'm just thirsty for knowledge. I want to know as much as I can while I'm here.
What gets you interested? What piques your interest these days outside of agronomy, outside of farming?
I've been so obsessed and so locked into this whole agronomy business. I don't have a lot of time for side stuff. I used to curl quite a bit, but I haven't curled in a couple of years now. Yeah, baseball, Minnesota Twins. I like to go to a few games. Not too big into sports though. Like to get a little golf in. I still like to read about markets, find out what's going on around the world. I still keep track of all that, but I don't trade as much as I used to. Again, because of that whole high risk tolerance thing, I just try to stay away. But yeah, I mean, in markets especially because it really gives you a window into how the world works. Especially you start thinking about interest rates. How many things depend on interest rates and how much of the world is just dictated by that one thing. I find all that fascinating. How just the whole global order kind of falls back on a few things like that, like interest rates. It's fascinating to me.
Well, yeah, the bond markets, interest rates. I mean, nothing can. Well, I shouldn't say nothing, but interest rates have a great ability to inflate asset values and deflate them just on interest rates alone. So it can have a huge impact on one's business or investments. And
Yeah. And if you owned assets over the last 20 years, you've been doing great, with
yeah,
up until now, it starts to slow down when we have to have real interest rates again. But I fought that for so many years. I'm such a contrarian just naturally that I always look for the short and not the long. And I don't know
yeah.
why that is. And my friend that got me into trading used to just hate that about me. Like, why don't you just buy stocks and just hold them? And looking back on it, it's totally obvious, but my brain is just wired to find something that's going to collapse or go down. I mean, I've been watching John Deere stock I was shorting that thing in 2015 in August. I had put options and it finally went down in August of 2015 when they reported earnings. And that was the bottom. I mean, that was like, I think it hit 76 a share and now it's whatever it is, probably $8 million a share. That thing does nothing but go up. And I don't know where I was going with all this, but yeah, that market stuff really, really interests me. But again, that negative bias I have just gets in the way of it.
Yeah, I think I think it can be, I think the negative bias could be, well, I think it's a product of our environment growing up. And I think being a contrarian, I was given advice one time by a ex investment banker out of London from Asquith, Saskatchewan, actually. He told me that it's okay to be contrarian as long as you don't try to be. And that
It's
really
good.
resonated with me.
Yeah, that resonates with me too.
I think early part of my life, maybe the first half of my life, I was trying to be contrarian.
I think I was too. I fell in with the wrong crowd, the gold bugs, the Peter Schiffs of the world. That's how I got my start. No, I take it back. I got my start in 2007, a Chinese solar company, LDK. And I made money on my first trade, and that is
Oh
the
boy.
worst thing
Oh,
that can ever happen to you because you think you're a genius, and then you get handed oh man, Yeah, nothing more humbling than that. Oof.
Yeah, the world will show, the universe will show you. I think it steals from Rick Rubin here. The universe will show you what's possible, and then the next
Yeah.
step will show you that it takes a lot of work and effort. I never made money in my first trade or my second one. I just been super resilient, but or gambling. I've never made money gambling, thank God, you know. But yeah, um, the whole contrarian thing. Yeah, I think it's a product of could be a product of agriculture, more likely product of our environment. But yeah, there's always some reason to want to short, and I'm guilty of it too. You think you maybe see something that others don't, you know, or kind of like being a
Yeah, I don't.
conspiracy. I relate it to like being a conspiracy theorist or something. You know, you're seeing something that other people don't see, maybe, or you think you do, and some sort of fulfillment from that. But usually,
Maybe it's a weird kind of FOMO. Like everybody else is in on this thing, and I'm kind of pissed off about it, and I want to go the other way. Maybe, maybe an underlying subconscious thing. I don't know what it is either, but a product of your environment for sure. That's a big part of that is true.
but yeah, to your point, the people who want something to go down in value are the ones who aren't in it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that I'm not the type of guy that wants something to go down in value. It's just like, because when stocks are going down, it means bad times for real
Yeah.
people. People feel the pain from that. So it's not that I want, it's just that contrarian bet that I think that's what it is. I'm not a part of this. So hell with it. I'm going to take the other side of it, and I'm going to stand my ground as long as I can stay solvent. Oh, man. Hard lessons. Oof.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, so you wrote extensively about from the seat of the truck, hauling sugar beets and the long, I've never done that. I drove semi, but never the beet run. You've talked about that. We're I grew up as a Durham wheat farmer as a kid growing up, and then we got into pulse crops and and I didn't even, canola now, but sugar beets, what's the people up here don't know what that's about. They don't even know. They've never seen that operation.
Beets is a different animal. It'll really test your patience and test your sanity. But it's historically speaking, it's been the most resilient of crops, typically the one that keeps guys afloat when corn, wheat, soybeans, when those are all down. Sugar beets typically lift the load, and it's because, well, a lot of it is because there's so many government controls on the price of sugar, and there's a lot of lobby money that keeps that industry growing or going. But yeah, there is just something about sugar beets that it's such a love-hate relationship. I hate sugar beets because we plant them in April, we babysit them all year. You have to spray them 6, 7, 8, 10 times some years, and then you harvest them in October, which is often one of the wettest months of the year in heavy clay soils. And well, this year we did it. It lasted 32 days from October 1st to November 2nd, I think we got done. And I mean, you're not out there every day. There's rain delays that push you back, and then you're bringing in help, hired people from all over the place, and you're trying to keep them there. A lot of them will take 2 weeks vacation because they can come out and make, I don't know what it is now, 3, 4, $5,000 in 2 weeks. So people will take their time off work, and then if it rains, they're screwed. They got to go back to work, and then the farmer's screwed because you're scrambling to find help because now the window is getting even tighter. The frost is coming. Typically early to mid-November, the ground is frozen, so you're really up against the clock, and it's a 24-hour operation. I mean, the pilers, there's 50 some piling stations up and down the Red River Valley. So from the Canadian border down just south of Fargo is our American Crystal, is our beet company factory. There's 5 factories spread throughout the valley, and then 58 piling stations. So we'll haul either straight to the factory or to those piling stations, and it is round the clock. Some growers, the smaller ones like us, we only have 300 acres of sugar beets, so we just run a 12-hour shift. But some guys grow 2, 3, 4,000 acres of sugar beets, and they are round the clock. It doesn't stop. Yeah, it's hard to even describe until you see it. It's quite a thing. I don't know, but that's something I've always done too. I can remember riding with my dad in the Beet truck when I was 4 or 5 years old, and you couldn't pull me out of there either. There's just something about it. The smell of the dirt, there's a whole group of people, and we all have a shared goal. And the more miserable it is, the more fondly I look back on it. 2012 was a complete nightmare. We were almost out there till Thanksgiving. My uncle and I, we were digging and it was snowing, 5, 6 inches of snow on the ground, and we could dig for maybe 100 feet and get out, clean the harvester, and you're scraping mud and you're completely exhausted. But you just keep going. We got it done 2 days before Thanksgiving, I think. And then we get done and we go to town for breakfast and find out somebody else isn't quite done yet. And we all look at each other. We've been up for like 50 some hours. Well, do you want to go help Maynard? Yeah, well, let's go help Maynard. So then we go run another 18-hour shift and help him finish up just before Thanksgiving. And I don't know, it's just what people do. It's like nothing else. And I don't know, yeah, again, love-hate relationship. But yeah, sitting in that beet truck, you got a lot of time to think, and it could probably break some people. It almost broke me, as you probably read about. That was a tough one.
Yeah, it's, there's some couple things there. Growing up on a farm, you can't wait to run that truck. And the best time of year for me, it was always harvest time. Seeding time, spring, whatever, right? But harvest, right? You can go for 48 hours without a sleep, right? Or close to it, I guess. Maybe. Well, I don't know if I ever did that, but you're running on adrenaline anyways, right? And I just think back to the days of the 3-ton truck. It was 86. It was wet. I was 15. Stayed home for my birthday in October to drive truck. And that was something I always wanted to do, No one else wanted to harvest in October, but I wanted to skip school to do it, right? And, wet conditions and taking one hopper out of might have been a 750 Massey at the time. So 160 bushels, maybe 180. And driving 3 or 4 miles and the 8-inch Secundiac auger and moving from bin to bin when you're 15 and just trying to get back so that combine wasn't parked, it was incredibly stressful, but it kind of makes you who you are today. If you can overcome that, I mean, there's not a whole
Yeah,
lot. What can't you do?
it builds so much character. You've especially when I was younger, we didn't have cell phones yet, so if you went to do something, I worked for guys with several different farms, and some of them are just old abandoned farmyards with no water, no electricity, nothing, and they send you out there to hook up a piece of machinery or get this or get that. And of course, nothing is right. The hydraulic ends are wrong, or the hitch pin size is wrong. And I mean, you have to figure so many things out on your own. And I think that's why a lot of farmers, or I know, there's so much ingenuity there, because you have to figure stuff out yourself. Otherwise you're stuck, and I mean, some of the smartest people I know are farmers, and it's almost a secret. It's almost a secret because not everybody, but the typical cliche is that farmers are idiots, when couldn't be farther from the truth. But you're right, it builds a lot of character, especially those hard times, those long harvests that drag on, man.
Yeah, I look back on those times fondly. And at the time, you're just running on adrenaline, and
Yeah.
it didn't. You just knew you had a job to do.
Mm.
It didn't
Yeah, and you
really.
just do it. That's just, watching my family do it. You might complain about it a little bit, but you do it, you get it done, and I don't know, that's where a lot of my work ethic came from, I guess. Just you figure it out, you do it, you get it done.
Yeah, you don't quit until the job is done. I remember I started a summer job for the town of Etonia, and I wasn't quite done the job at 5 o'clock. Right, I just stayed till the job was done. I didn't I just thought that's what you did. I didn't know any different. Yeah, it was. I remember the conversation with the foreman, Randy. You explained to me how things work. Your day's over. Come back, finish it tomorrow. What do you mean? I got half an hour left here, right?
Yeah. I thought that was so weird when I went and worked inside at that car dealership. Like every day you're done at 5:30 and people just drop everything. That is so different for me. Like I'm the one who stay out in the field till wee hours in the morning just to get it done. It's just, I don't know. It's been wired into my nature, I guess.
Yeah, I had a hired hand, and it wasn't his farm, and he didn't come from a farm background. He's handier than heck. He was great. Gary was his name. But at some point in the harvest time, and Adam, I had no idea. It could have been the first week, it could have been the third week. I wasn't keeping track of days. I had no HR program in place. It was just Sunday was a Monday, right? And I could see him kind of it was wearing, I'll say this, it really wore on him, and some cracks was starting to show, and I didn't, then I realized like it's like 28 days, right? I had no
Yeah.
idea. We just kept going. He didn't say anything. I didn't know any different, right? And it was funny. After that, we had to develop a program for take time off, but for him, but um, yeah, you just do it till the job's done, right? So, but
Yeah, that's just all you know. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that look a lot too. People that aren't used to it and come on work and they're like, when are we going to go home? Like, home? What are you talking about? There's a lot left to do. Go
yeah.
take a nap if you want.
Well, you got a lot of things going on. So you launched your new business, True Grit
Mhm.
Agronomy.
Yep. About a
Want to
month and a
start
half ago.
from zero?
Pretty much, yeah. I didn't have any. I mean, I got some growers that I work with from the seed business, but no dedicated clients except Josh, the guy that I've worked with for 5 years and help him manage the farm. He's kind of he's now my first client, and picked a couple more up so far. Again, people that think they're spending too much on fertility, but might not know how to figure it out or how to go about making that change. So there's interest out there, and I find that it's in a lot of the younger guys, a lot of the 40, 50, 60-year olds. They're set and they don't really want to change. But yeah, so I got that going on. I partnered with a drone operation or a drone company in January. It was right after I wrote that swimming naked piece, the one you were talking about, the fertility reduction one. That was getting a bunch of attention from the university on Facebook, and I was flipping through, and I saw this drone guy, Harvest Drone, Jake Lund. He's looking to hire a salesman, and when I also worked a crop consulting stint from 2018 to 2020, which is where I started to learn about all this soil fertility stuff and geeky stuff. And when I first looked at it, it looked like I was looking into the matrix. I didn't understand any of it. And the reason I got hired at that job was to be the tech guy, the drone guy. So the guy I worked for, he bought a couple of drones. I went out and flew some fields and made some pretty maps, NDVI maps, and looked at them. And like, well, what can I really do with this? There was nothing to monetize there. It wasn't really useful at the time. I mean, you might see a bad spot in the field or a thin spot in the field, but then you still got to walk out there and see what's going on. There was really no practical use cases for them back then. But I always loved it, and I loved the tech, and I always wanted to come back to it. And now I've got this agronomy business. I'm trying to design people's fertility plans, help them execute it throughout the season, monitor their crop. But a lot of guys don't want to, they might not have the ability to apply it, or maybe they just don't want to apply it. That's where the drones come in. You can do so much with them. I mean, you can do it without soil compaction. You don't have to go run a bunch of crop over. They've gotten so much better in the last 2 years at spray coverage, at documenting what they're doing. And on top of it, the government, state government, U.S. government, they have a lot of money allocated to regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, whatever buzzword you want to call it. They are really pushing for farmers here to change their practices. So in a lot of cases, this stuff is actually paid for. So what I saw when I saw Jake's ad, Harvest Drone, I responded to him. I'm like, we need to talk, because I saw that as the other end of my solution, from fertility to application. And then it's how do you get farmers to pay for this? How do you incentivize them to make that change? And that's where these programs, one of them's called Equip, and it's just there is a mile-long list of practices you can adopt, whether it's cover crops, reduced fertility, um, variable rate technology, just a ton of stuff and funds available, but hardly anybody does it because it is a mountain of paperwork. And depending on what county you live in and what rep works in that county or in that county office, I've been trying to get on it for 2 years, and our local guy hasn't gotten anything accomplished. If you're not tight buddies with him, you're not going to get on this program. So Jake and I, that was part of what we wanted to do together, was find ways to take care of this paperwork for the growers, so it's not a pain for them. They might have to sign a couple of things, but now they're incentivized to do what we're trying to get them to do. So that, I feel like that was the missing piece. And we met with a company in Kansas 2 weeks ago called Farm Comp, and that is all they do. They're technical service providers. They write these plans for growers. Well, first they sit down with the grower, find out what goals they want to accomplish, what they want to change, whether it is cover crops or fertility reduction or any of those things. And they will file the paperwork for that grower, basically make it as painless as possible to get that done. So we partnered up with them. So now we've got the whole end-to-end solution from the second that fertilizer hits the dirt until it's harvested in the fall. And the goal is to get most of that paid for. So it takes the fear out of it. It takes a lot of the risk out of it, because now you're not spending out of pocket. And it also advances your farm. I feel like it advances your farm anyway. Some people might disagree with that, but yeah, so putting all this together with several different companies, with Harvest Drone, with Earth Optics, Sound Egg, I'm tied in with a lot of companies, and each one of them has a piece of this puzzle. And yeah, just putting all that together has been a huge project, and it's consumed my life for the past 5 to 6 weeks. But it's coming together. We're close. We had a big meeting on Friday in Detroit Lakes, and when Jake talks about the drones, that's when the people get excited. That's when farmers really get excited, when they see what they can do with them, how easy they are to fly. I mean, we can spray a field in a quarter section, 160 acres, we can spray in a little over an hour, because we can swarm 3 drones with one controller, one person running them. So the battery lasts about 10 minutes. So if you do the math, it gets pretty tight.
So yeah, we can, so now 3 drones, one field, we can swarm the whole field and spray it. We can spray a quarter section in like an hour, and one guy can run the whole show. If you're doing 3, you need a second guy to help with the trailer, the water trailer. Because you got to have one guy there to fill, to change the battery out, and then get it up in the air and out of the way for the next one to come land. So, what we'll probably do mostly is run 2, but yeah, you could run 3 drones. One little Windows 11 tablet runs it all. You go out there with another drone, a small drone, you map the fields, then you get the boundary, and you design the flight path for these sprayers. So then when the pilot gets out there, it's essentially hit a couple of buttons and watch it go, and then you just fill them as they come back. I mean, it is mind-blowing how much that technology has advanced. And the biggest limitation is battery. If they can figure out battery power, I mean, I think drones will be the norm. I don't know if they'll ever replace the ground rig sprayer, but crop dusters, airplanes, I don't know, I think their future looks pretty bleak, mainly from a safety standpoint. It seems like we lose pilots all the time, we just had a young guy die 2 years ago in my hometown, or next to my hometown, hit a guy wire, and just like that, it's over, So we're increasing safety, efficiency. We're getting better coverage with these drones, because the propellers, the prop wash, pushes that product down into the canopy.
Okay.
Instead of, if you think of a spray plane, it's just kind of laying a blanket over the top, Instead of that, we're actually pushing it down in there, so that our fungicides get more effective. Just a lot of benefits. We can also spread cover crops with them. They got it's almost like a 2 to 2.5 bushel hopper. Go out and spread them. So We've actually got a field day on our farm on April 17th. That should be pretty fun to see all that. And I think it'll be quite the spectacle in our town because there's never been anything like it around there. So I guess we're bringing the future to northern Minnesota.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's neat. So efficiency wise, cost wise, how does it translate to your high clearances?
Cost wise, compared to a spray plane, we're $2 an acre more. So, I mean, not that much more expensive.
Investment wise would be less, I would assume.
Investment wise, well, they're still pretty pricey, but like any technology, it'll come down. The company I'm working with, Harvest Drone, they're partnered with Helio Drones, which is an American-made company based out of Texas. And there's been a lot of, with the whole trade debacle, I think 90% of the drone market right now is DJI, made out of China. But now there's a ban. Anybody with a DJI drone can't update the software. So it's basically a clock is ticking until it's pretty much useless. So I think there's going to be a big push to American-made drones. And you see it with a lot of companies. They'll say American-made, but American might be South American, or maybe it might just be assembled in America. Where Helio started out as a 40-person company trying to make their own drones and trying to compete against DJI, which is a giant behemoth. They kind of started out with a bad reputation, but now this last line of drones they came out with, it's legit. They were able to raise a whole bunch of investor money. Now I think they're up to 100 and some employees. I don't know. They just built a huge production facility down in Texas. Yeah, they've really, really come a long way with their they're pricing, they're $46,000 for a drone yet. But if you think about it, a lot of guys spend $30,000 to $50,000 a year on the plane just for applying fungicides or herbicides. So it doesn't take long for one to pay for itself. And then when the farmer sees how easy they actually are to use and fly, a lot of times if you go bring them one to demo, that drone stays there.
Really?
You're sending a guy out in a 4-wheeler or something, and you go run over a bunch of crop just to spot spray this little patch of weeds. Well, now you can just fly out there and leave everything undisturbed, and you really don't. If the field's close to your farm, you really don't have to leave.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a wild time to be in agriculture. Well, just to be alive, it's a wild time. The technology we have now, you start looking at AI, and I don't know. I don't think we're going to be able to recognize the world for 5 years or less. It's going to look so different. And it's kind of scary, but it's exciting at the same time.
Yeah, just the stuff that I see with AI and what one of our sons is working on right now. It just, with agents and different things like that, it blows my mind. In fact, he's got a poly-market bot for me that, through his newsletter. He offers it for free. And, but I've never been on GitHub before, right? I got a GitHub account, don't know how to use it.
That's over my head too. I don't even think I know what it is. I've heard of it, but
yeah. It's where all these software are stored and
sure.
Anyways, I had a GitHub account for years, didn't know how to use it anyways. At 4:00 today, he's walking me through this process and see if I can keep up on it. So,
right on.
But a few years ago that didn't exist.
Oh yeah, none of this existed. I mean, that agronomist that I was telling you about in Kansas has developed an AI tool called Scout, and basically what he's building is an AI. I can't think of the name right now. Basically a bot that knows everything about agronomy, the history of agronomy, everything about soil. Everything gets loaded into that. And on top of that, you load all your farmers' data. So if you got 10 years of soil tests, you load all that in. You load in yield data. Basically, the more data you have, the better it's going to get. But this thing is going to know everything about agronomy, everything about the history of your farm. It's tied into historical weather, future forecasts. It's tied into grain markets. So now you can ask it, hey, Scout, what should I plant on the North 40? Well, based on market conditions, you should plant field peas or whatever it might be. And
Really?
it's like an agronomist in your pocket that you can ask and you can talk to it just like a chat GPT, and it's got a personality, and it's mind blowing what he's building. Like, I can't wait to see it. And it's supposed to be released here in 2 to 6 weeks, but he's got a preview on his website, and it just looks incredible. I just cannot wait to I'm trying to get a beta version of it because he wants people to break it, to find out where the flaws are. But
Yeah.
and then you know how AI can hallucinate. So he's put guardrails on it. It has no access to the World Wide Web, so it can't go out and find bad information. It really sounds like they've covered everything. And I'm sure they're not the only ones developing it. I think that's going to be the next frontier, if you will. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipeline.
It is. And you and I need to stay on top of it. Stay curious.
Right too.
Stay ambitious.
Yeah. Trying to, as long as I don't burn myself out again. Which I've done a couple of times in the past couple of years.
Yeah. Well, just try to manage that. Be aware of that, I guess. You know what? I really enjoyed this. I'm glad we were able to connect. I'm glad you took time out of your busy day to on here. It's going to be
great. I've been looking forward to it since you asked me in August. I'm glad it finally worked out.
Yeah. I thought I'd have my act together here, and then of course we have some technical difficulties today again.
That's the way it always goes every time. No
I
worries.
guess I'll keep learning.
Next time we'll have to do it in person when I get up to Saskatoon.
Absolutely. Okay, buddy, you have a great day. Thanks for coming on.
You too. Take care.
I will.